So like definitely like a very interesting right now as for like in like Act versus Cynthia 6 versus that with like currently Act having like three Pokemon remaining while Cynthia having four Pokemon remaining with like the difference between them mostly being that of like just a single Pokemon. Yet like right now with like Pop making me fail out of this like the gap is like the gap between Act and Cynthia is like extremely huge and that Cynthia is like incredible for like Pop right now. So let me a total big deal out of that. So this only due to that extreme lack of like experience when it comes to like Hop when it comes to like Pokemon battles. Definitely, even though Hop is like Leon's brother, it's definitely not a very emphasis. Because like it's like a six versus especially because like it being like a six battle with like both Ash and Cynthia have Ash having three Pokemon remaining and Cynthia having four Pokemon remaining. With the difference between them only being that of like a single Pokemon. I think like the like always lacks the possibility of like the type of the battle like possibly changing and switching to like the favor of either Ash or Cynthia at any point. Yet like like Leon's brother to not be able to like comprehend this movie solely due to that extreme lack of uh, experience in like Pokemon battle that Hawk would be having is definitely my secondary impression. And I'm considering like this would be the same thing with like Dianta, even though Dianta is like the champion of Kalos, like I think so. Yet like for Dianta to like totally make a huge sale out of Ash losing his Pikachu and Dianta being along the line, such as like Ash losing his Pikachu is basically means that Ash has suffered like immeasurable damage when in actuality like the majority of that was that Ash has fought in like the past like basically like especially just lost because only rarely that Ash alone while fighting along battling alongside his Pikachu was able to like take down more than one Pokemon in a single battle and especially when like the such a history of like a fight performance from at Pikachu's side yet for like at the end that could only sing along the lines as if like Ash suffered immeasurable damage in a quick battles due to like just losing Pikachu. It is most likely due to like the entire even when being like the champion of the Kalos region, like after entering like the master field, like probably not having like study about like any of our opponents and also that maybe due to like the end of like or something or maybe just due to like the end of just being lazy and that way like my personal ambitions that the end will be having like absolutely not much of like an idea for like the kind of trainer Ash is or about like Ash's Pikachu or about like the history of Ash's Pikachu's like fight performance so far and hence why the entire would be feeling as if like Ash has suffered like immeasurable damage just by Ash losing his like Pikachu alone. Like basically with like still as having like three Pokemon remaining in like this battle. It definitely would be like for the entire to just sing along the line to be just the entire not being able to like without realizing like the performance history of like Ash Pikachu just singing along the lines of like just because Pikachu is like Ash's like favorite Pokemon or like starter Pokemon or Ash's favorite Pokemon just because of that like being actually getting defeated in like the Ashes battle against Cynthia would be like immeasurable damage would be along the lines like considering the entire would be like naively thinking is definitely not the impression. So like the impression right now is for like the entire telling Leon right now that like neither of them like Ash neither Ash nor Cynthia have used like Mega Evolution nor Dynamax gimmick. Considering that as well, considering would be like naively and are only assuming that basically neither of them are not going to like use Reno at all. That's like one person that I'm noticing. The other person that I'm noticing is like it would be DMs are assuming that like if it is in fact Reno that at least one of them will be a gimmick that at least one of them would be using like each and every single time that like the entire would be totally assuming that basically Remo would be like a gimmick that everyone would be like definitely using towards the very end of their battle. Like would be one thing as well that I'm also bringing maybe Dianta would be assuming and hence like Dianta being currently being feeling confused as like why as neither as nor Cynthia having used any of like gimmicks like and especially like her talking about like dynamics as well as like mega evolution so it's definitely my good famous. So like definitely my good is definitely for like that I'm still thinking on to definitely for like it would be like the very same mega evolution gimmick that Cynthia had used in her initial battle in like the Master Sale against like especially Iris. That is exactly what I'm only putting for like India once again using that very same mega evolution gimmick in Cynthia's battle against Ash. And as for Ash, this time Ash, definitely switching to my person game will be like using his like mega evolution gimmick. And definitely I'm also bring like definitely for like a mega evolution showdown with like a mega Garchomp versus like a mega Lucario. And then since I think like it was during like Ash's like earlier fight in like the Pokemon World Championship against like right hand that I think like basically Ash had basically uh like ordered his like Lucario, not his Mega Lucario, but his like basic form Lucario to like use that Gigantamax level or like Dynamax level of like an aura. Yeah. And and Perseverance this time, for like the difference to be like at telling us like Mega Lucario this time. In like the final showdown battle between like a Mega Duck and then Mega Lucario. This is what I'm perceiving for like that was going to be a battle showdown battle and perceiving to be a showdown battle between like a Mega Duck versus like a Mega Lucario. In which I'm perceiving like this time the difference being like at um, the difference will be probably like at spelling with like mega Lucario to like use like that very thing like Gigantamax level aura sphere, Gigantamax or like Dynamax level giant aura sphere. And with that would be how personally probably putting like the scenario to be how like acts and like mega Lucario will be the key thing like Cynthia and just have like mega Gaston, and that would be how like the final showdown scenario is always like at really beating Cynthia. It's definitely like the into scenario that I'm considered only public and my person to the encryption. So like definitely like the Korean person right now with like access crackers right now facing off against like India's Gapchom. Like definitely first of all my person is definitely for like India to like not at all mega world Gapchom at all right now. It's definitely my person again. Definitely for it will be only against Lucario that it will be definitely in like the final showdown then as it's down to his now Pokemon it will definitely be Lucario. So the only at that point that when like Cynthia would be down safe or finally eventually would be down safe or last for any so definitely Garchomp. It will be only at that point when Cynthia will be sending out a Garchomp that Cynthia will be only at that point will be like mega evolving stuff. So it's definitely like the eventual scenario that I'm going to talk about. And right now, as for like the Dracovish versus Garchomp battle, like the Liam versus even though Dracovish has like the advantage over Garchomp, with like Dracovish being type advantage with like Dracovish being water while like there's the ground typing for like Dracovish for like Garchomp and so different still. I'm definitely predicting like the scenario to be like basically Garchomp to probably be faster like Dracovish, which like the scenario that I'm going to predict. And like I'm going to predict Garchomp doing a bit of damage to uh, a certain level of damage to Garchomp doing a certain level of damage to like for Dracovish. And I'm going to bring then like before Dracovish will be able to like, properly fight back. I'm going to bring like Cynthia as usual in this like repeated tactic in like her current battle against Ash. Like I'm going to bring Cynthia once again using that same strategy again and Cynthia switching out her Garchomp at that point it's like the scenario that I'm going to bring. And like the next Pokemon that Cynthia will be sending out, I'm going to bring that Pokemon would be like the Pokemon that will be definitely taking out and defeating Ash Rhyhorn. Like the scenario that I'm going to bring. And that way like Ash is like only actual pro that are Pokemon in Ash of 6 number things. Dracovish live like even Farfetch. Farfetch being like just a Galarian version of like Farfetch evolution. But like the absolute original proper like Galarian only actual proper Galarian Pokemon in Ash's like entire six member team only being Dracovish and I'm considering that Dracovish to not no I'm considering to not get much of a spotlight at always like I'm considering Dracovish not being able to like uh, defeat like the scenario to be like Dracovish not being able to defeat like not even a single Pokemon of the India like the scenario that I'm considering. And I'm going to bring then the next Pokemon that I should be sending with which is Surface. And I'm definitely bringing like that Surface to take out two Pokemon from India. With like at that point, with like the situation with the Ash having Ash remaining with Ash having only two Pokemon remaining, which was like Surface and Lucario. And like on the other hand, they would be having four Pokemon remaining. So like at that point, with like Dracovish not being able to like take out not even a single Pokemon from India, like the scenario that I'm going to bring. So like at that point, I'm going to bring Surface. A Pokemon that's not that extremely fast, like still able to bring like Surface or like extremely bulky, like yet like able to bring Surface like all by itself, like taking out two of India's Pokemon, with, like the among like the top two of India's Pokemon, and basically will be definitely be taken out and defeated by Surface. It's like the scenario that I'm going to bring. And then I was preparing the scenario to be like the actual fish taking off two of the four Pokemon remaining of Cynthia, and then I was preparing like Cynthia sent once again sending out her Garchomp. And I was preparing it would be the Garchomp, and even then like Cynthia won't be mega evolving sub Garchomp yet like I was preparing like the Garchomp of Cynthia totally or for defeating and defeating like the subjects of Ash, like the scenario that I was preparing, and at that point like Ash being down to the last Pokemon which would be Lucario. And at that point, I was different straight away. India, like falling back for Gapcho. At that point, it's like the scenario that I was different. So, and Cynthia sending out among Cynthia's like remaining two Pokemon, like this one being Gapcho, like I was going. India at that point sending out other Pokemon. And I was different Lucario without even Mega, as starting to like not even Mega is also like Lucario and Lucario without even Ash and Lucario without even Mega was indicating that second last Pokemon of Cynthia. And then like Cynthia sending out down the sort of last Pokemon exactly like as and by then like I was going to Lucario being like exhausted from like that whole battle. And by the time Lucario without even as Mega Evolution Lucario, Lucario even though it will be like defeating that second last Pokemon of Cynthia was by the time it will be defeating that Digimon like I was like Lucario to be badly exhausted even though Ash could have totally like straight away Mega was also like Lucario and the different Ash for reasons that Ash alone would be knowing like about different like that is the scenario that like Ash still not like like I always like Lucario and solely due to that like I'm different like Lucario taking a lot of damage and like by the time like Cynthia would be finally sending out her Garchomp and straight away Mega evolving it like Lucario would be like an extremely injured and exhausted state to definitely weapons of it. And it was only at that point that I was like, once like Garchomp would be stepping into like the battlefield against Lucario, and so they would be straight away Mega evolving for Garchomp. So it was only at that point that I was looking at totally deciding to like Mega evolve to select Lucario. And then like the ultimate showdown fight between like a Mega Garchomp or Mega Lucario, in which like I was eventually once again. So that G Max like Aura Sphere Lucario defeating Mega Garchomp of like Cynthia. That way, as defeating Cynthia is like so much of like upcoming like sequence of like scenario that I'm personally totally predicting. I'm personally totally predicting as for like how the Astros of Cynthia battle after that is going to like coming sequence as to like how it might get played out. My personal impression perspective. So like definitely not the game so right now it's like Cynthia right now sitting out her laptop and sending out the also and actually right now can't say that like why also rate doesn't have it like the effect like I'm definitely definitely would be totally has to do like the ability of the rotor rate. I'm definitely bringing like a rotor rate would be having that specific ability using with which like rotor any status like I'm going to bring it would just be like below a burn effect status condition alone like I'm going to bring like even like paralysis as well as like getting frozen, like all these stats conditions I'm considering like the moment Roserade would be pushed out of battle would be like automatically here by the time like Roserade would be sent out after like switching out the next time into like the battlefield is definitely my prevention. So like this would be the spot of healing in such a manner would be like the precise kind of like an ability that I'm also like a Roserade would be totally having. It's definitely my preference. And Cynthia might have consciously switched out her, even though Cynthia switched out her Pokemon a lot in like her battle against and like this also I'm think so like my impression right now is that basically earlier when Cynthia had sent out stuff Roserade like back then like Cynthia switching out of Roserade might have not been might have not happened according to Cynthia's plans in the web of like Cynthia might have been forced to like switch out her Roserade earlier than intended. It's definitely solely due to like the yellow like of like I think the cancer and disease and that they are also getting burned like to prevent like the burn effect of like the yellows to like cause like more and more damage to Rosary like would be like the reason for like Cynthia might have been forced at that point to like basically switch out of Rosary even way earlier and before than when Cynthia might have genuinely wanted to definitely my consideration. So need to like take advantage of Rosaray's abilities. Definitely what might have happened earlier is definitely my consideration. So like for one, since I get my impression that like basically right now like Rosaray with its like Syrah typing would be totally taking advantage of like the water typing of like Dracos and the clear Rosaray would be like defeating Dracos and that way Dracos won't be able to like not even take down a single Pokemon in the like 7 scenario that I'm still predicting and still thinking on to and I'm going to be like perfect a core Pokemon that would be like basically taking out a Roserade as well as like the next Pokemon that Cynthia would be setting up a Roserade as well. Regardless of whether she would be like switched out mid battle, like number different skill before as if like Surface would be going down and getting defeated, and those different Surface to be like taking out two of that defeating that two of Cynthia Pokemon. Especially the scenario that I'm different and still thinking on it. So like definitely my potential impression right now was like Draco being extremely angry of getting poisoned and determined to like take a Roserade down. I'm going to definitely right now my percentage impression is definitely for like trackers to definitely the determined trackers to like actually be able to like succeed in like its intent and goal and basically trackers taking out and defeating also raiders like the scenario that I'm preparing. But like I'm preparing at the moment trackers would be like defeating also raid and I'm preparing to most likely using like I think like trackers like ice fan. So like I'm also trying like most likely to be using like the ice fan type of like trackers, which would be like super experience or also like using it with like trackers would be like defeating a Roserade, but like the moment trackers would be like defeating Roserade and Roserade would be getting defeated at that moment itself. I'm also trying like from the multiple effects of like that repeated effects of like the poison. I'm also trying like the moment trackers would be defeating Roserade, trackers as well definitely fading instantly with like the scenario from like the effects of the poison is definitely the scenario that about the thing of Iceland. Like still my percentage impressions are like that way like Dracos would only be able to like take out a single Pokemon and straight away like the moment Dracos would be like I'm talking about the scenario to be like the moment Dracos would be taking out and defeating Roserade Dracos as well fainting straight away. While in the case of like Surface, which is definitely like the next Pokemon after Gyarados that actually be sending out. Like in the case of Surface, I'm considering Surface not only taking out a Pokemon of like one Pokemon of like Cynthia, but like also on considering like Surface still going and basically Cynthia even while Cynthia would be sending out second last Pokemon as well. Like basically even then I'm considering Surface to like basically still going and still basically maybe even definitely if being able to having like the energy to like still keeping on fighting that second lap of one of India as well. But like I'm also bringing in that battle that even though it would be in that battle that Surface would be like I'm also trying to be like getting defeated. Yet like I'm also still Surface like Dracovish alone not being able to like continue after like basically defeating its like opponent while Surface would be able to like defeat it like and take down its like Cynthia's one Pokemon and then keeping on continuing on to like fighting the next Pokemon of Cynthia's like the scenario even the scenario that I'm thing and my interested. Like my interested definitely for like that way like Surface getting a whole more of like a spotlight than Dracovish in this battle eventually is like the scenario that I'm considered only protect and my personal interested. Okay, so like definitely my personal question right now is that basically against like the Milotic of Cynthia right now they're preparing like as of like who are poison like fighters like I'm considering not being able to do any damage at all, like not even a single damage I'm considering Dracos to be able to like inflict on like the Milotic. Milotic just being able to maybe like being a fallout even faster and I'm considering that straight away, like I'm bring like Milotic to take out like as like poison trackers, specifically the scenario that I'm bring like trackers to not even be able to like stay in like the battle at all, like but like I'm bring like the very first or second attack of Milotic, I'm bring that trackers should be like getting depleted. Like the scenario that without being able to like inflict any damage at all to like Milotic is like the scenario that I'm bring I know so like definitely according to my present information about preparing like once like Milotic would remove like straight away taking out like try to like about preparing like hash sending out the like surface precisely and I'm going to bring that the battle being like Milotic versus surface where like I'm going to bring Milotic doing a certain level of damage, serious damage to like surface and then I'm purposely prepping like before surface will be able to like fight back I'm going to bring once again like Cynthia to like use like the same kind of strategy with like Cynthia falling back and switching out Milotic. Second scenario that I'm considering. And Cynthia will be sending out next Pokemon, which should definitely not be Lapchomp. This also definitely my for them. So like that Pokemon I'm considering will be at that point switching out and coming into the battlefield against Surface would be like the Pokemon that I'm considering Surface would be able to defeat. It's definitely my range. And after defeating that Pokemon, I'm considering like Cynthia once again sending out of Milotic into the battlefield, and Milotic straight away Surface not being able to do any Surface still different at least being able to inflict at least a tiny bit of a certain level of damage to Milotic before Surface trying is the scenario. Surface for Surface painting is the scenario that I'm going to roll at least a single attack and preparing at that point subject will be using the at least a single attack and preparing subject to be able to succeed in inflicting a certain level of damage to Milotic before subjects should be thoroughly defeated by Milotic. The scenario that I'm preparing. But I'm preparing it to not be such great damage at all to Milotic. It's definitely a scenario that I'm preparing. So at that point being down to the last Pokemon Lucario. As sending out with Lucario, as still not mega evolving with Lucario. Even against Milotic, I'm preparing Ash to still for Ash's own personal reasons, I'm preparing Ash still Ash might have this thing of and maybe I'm preparing Ash might be totally expecting Cynthia to mega evolve with Dark Jump eventually. And maybe Ash might see already even by stepping into the battlefield against India itself at that point Ash might have been only expecting uh since Ash during the previous day interaction Ash earlier interaction Ash learned about how that term is India first Pokemon and his Pokemon and all that I'm the reason I'm maybe Ash still expecting Cynthia to mega evolve after so to defeat the mega jump of India with as mega Lucario would be this ultimate goal or intent with which Ash might have even entered into stepped into his current battle against India definitely my good. So I'm suffering maybe because of reason I'm suffering even against at that point even against about the as not choosing not to mega work with Lucario. And about the in that battle Lucario without even mega evolving totally or scoring and defeating Milotic is the scenario that I'm referring. But we had solely due to Lucario not mega evolve at the setting not the mega evolve of Lucario but Lucario taking a certain level of damage before being able to defeat Milotic is the scenario that I'm referring. And then it's the final showdown between the Mega Gabjam versus Mega Lucario. It's the scenario that I'm printing and my person game version. Because looking at the game version right now, as for right now, while Draco is trying to push through that Sun voice stereotype attack of the Milotic and by super even though Draco is will be giving it everything I'm supporting Draco is the scenario to be supporting to be Draco is pushing its way all the way to make it so close to landing it's Dragon type attack on Milotic, but at that very last second I'm supporting the effects of the repeated effects of the poison being reaching that the limit and basically Draco is shortly fainting at that point right when Draco is using it dragon type move would be getting so close Milotic just before it would be able to land the dragon type attack on Milotic at that very last second I was supporting definitely and that coupled effects of the HP loss due to the poison effect coupled with the HP loss of the through the disarming voice, super effective move with charming voice from as well. And both the bring their collective combined HP reducel of Dracovish HP and both the bring would be reaching zero. Then Dracovish to pain for the players Dracovish will be just about to land its dragon type attack on Milotic is the scenario that I'm talking about and that way Dracovish losing to getting defeated by Milotic is the mechanism and that way Draco is fainting without being able to inflict any damage at all to Milotic. It's the even the scenario that I'm still thinking about another game rector. Okay, so Draco is move. I intended to say Dragon Rush, but I said Dragon Life. So the thing that I'm present right now as for Cynthia ordering Milotic to use bind on Draco support Pokemon a Pokemon Draco is that an extremely scary and strong and powerful job. I'm considering definitely Milotic solely due to that decision of Cynthia and considering Milotic definitely right now suffering and taking damage and considering definitely the Milotic right now finding Draco and considering Ash to definitely use crunch or some bite attack of Dracos and I'm also that is doing significant damage, especially because of how it's definitely strong, lagging powerful Draco, which is jaw power, jaw attack power would be emphasized. That's showing not just like a tiny bit of like damage, but like I'm considering that fight at from that fight from such a close range, and for that fight for like crunch attack from Dracovish, I'm considering like so significant damage to like Milotic. It's like the scenario that I'm considering everything. So like that I'm considering like, but that like I'm considering still Milotic not fainting or getting defeated, but yeah, like I'm considering still after that fight at for like range attack from Dracovish, I'm considering Milotic only freeing itself, and with like the very next attack of Milotic, I'm considering Dracovish would be definitely getting defeated, and I'm considering maybe it would be the another some voice on like it would be just another paper from like with another that I'm considering. Yet still my consideration is definitely that like even though that way I'm considering like Dracovish to get defeated by Milotic still. Uh, to like Cynthia's decision to like use to order her to make her kill on Milotic like use fine on writers and the difference so leading to that like a difference even though Milotic would be the difference to defeat Dracovish like by then like the difference Milotic would have sustained like significant serious levels of like HP loss and damage which like the scenario that I'm and that way making it that much easier for like Suffix to like a suffix to like defeat Milotic would be along the lines I should be thinking and about to bring like as to totally and straight away send out his like suffix. But like at that point still fun to bring even though Milotic would be extremely exhausted like, and might have taken a lot of injuries and HP loss like from Draco. Possible still Cynthia straight away like the moment Suffix will be entering into like the battlefield and possible straight away for Cynthia to like switch out her Milotic. It's like the scenario that I was going. So like and then possible Cynthia sending out her next Pokemon which will be like considering like it would definitely be not Garchomp but still considering that Pokemon and considering Suffix would definitely be defeating by itself. Like Gumball different subjects would be like straight away in like a one versus one. While like Gumball different subjects would be like taking out that Pokemon and like Gumball since they are not switching out mid battle that Pokemon. So, like it's a scenario that Gumball different. And then Gumball different Cynthia once again setting out Milotic. And at that point, by then, like Gumball different Milotic would have recovered enough, just barely enough to be able to like defeat Serpent. Like the scenario that Gumball different. So that like Sapesh getting defeated that way, as sending his Lucario, as not Mega Evolved with his Lucario, is that yet like I'm different as Lucario being able to like defeat Milotic without sustaining much of a damage at all. It's like the scenario that I'm looking then like as just like Mega Lucario versus like Mega Raptor, India Mega just Mega Raptor Tournament is like the scenario that I'm looking from right now. So thing like that's me my impression right now with like top defeating Milotic like I'm right now, definitely, like, Cynthia would be definitely sending out Togekiss, and I'm going to bring Togekiss to definitely defeat Surface, like the scenario that I'm looking at. And I'm definitely bringing like Surface not being able to like do any sort of significant damage at all against like Togekiss. It's like also like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like I'm just bringing like what's the impression right now and for like Cynthia, all of them right now switching up strategical pattern like of like switching and basically in like the melodic versus like surface fight alone like basically the fact that like Cynthia decided not to switch out her melodic would be precisely my consideration that it would be that totally resulting in like melodic speech but at that my consideration is that definitely played a major role in like melodic speech against like surface definitely my consideration so like I'm the like lack of switching that India is in the case of Milotic alone, like Milotic fight against like suppressor fighters. The separation would be especially due to like Cynthia known being well and fully aware as to like Cynthia not like having studied as in the Pokemon, unlike the and the separation Cynthia would be like and so like Cynthia would be like well and fully aware that basically as that like as his last Pokemon would be definitely his like Lucario. So like I'm considering especially with like since like Lucario and considering like Cynthia would be also aware that like Lucario will be like definitely fast and strong. So like definitely especially since like Milotic due to like Milotic already having like India would be also aware that like of like that final like jaw bite kind of like crunch kind of like attack from Dracovish had basically done like significant damage on Milotic. So like on top of that basically Milotic when fought off when he fought off against like Lucario like even more than Milotic like the Milotic won't be able to like dodge like Lucario's speed and attack would be along the lines, Cynthia might have thought when compared to like Dracovish, which is since Dracovish can fly, like and like Cynthia might have only seen prioritize like Dracovish like at that point more than like Milotic survival, like I'm going to bring like Cynthia might have only thought along the lines of basically prioritizing Dracovish because like Cynthia might have only for might have felt that Dracovish might be definitely be able to like do way more damage against like Lucario than Milotic would be able to. So like I'm going to bring to be precisely due to like this reason that like since like this would like easily dodge like Lucario's like attack would be along the lines Cynthia would be thinking. So like I'm going to bring it would be precisely due to this reason that I'm going to bring like Cynthia might have decided to like not switch out like Milotic while Milotic was fighting against like Surface like Cynthia's taking the decision not to like switch out and bring Togekiss to like even though like my brother remembers that if like Cynthia had done that like basically done that such a switching like Togekiss would have easily or further defeated Surface's definitely my brother remembers. Yet like I'm preferring like Cynthia might have wanted like a Milotic they might have only seen like a purpose for Milotic, and that might have been precisely to so they might have felt that the possibility of like maybe uh, like especially since like Milotic had taken so much damage from like that final crunch of like Joe by attack of like Dracovish like I'm bring like maybe like Cynthia might have even felt the possibility that maybe like of Milotic not being able to like it with Surface like my reimbursement. So like I'm bring like Cynthia might have been like, but while not switching out Milotic, like Cynthia might have been just for like attempting to like use like the last bit of strength and a skill left within her Milotic to like basically take surface along with like Milotic. So it's definitely my personal immersion. So like Amber brings or like to at least do as much damage as possible from with like Milotic against like surface before like Milotic gets defeated. So like this might be like so that like basically so that way like topic is that so that way like Cynthia prioritizing topic is so that like using Milotic in such a manner that topic is would be getting that advantage and basically would be so that like topic is at that point would be able to like, take the advantage and quickly finish off its like opponent by then that would have dealt a certain level of damage through Milotic might have been like precisely Cynthia's plan. So that like basically at that point as would be only would be down to the last person on Lucario against whom like even if Togekiss like fails to like defeat Lucario still like Togekiss with things like absolute full strength like would be able to like to like a significant amount of damage against like Lucario so that like that way like it being like advantages for Cynthia to like basically at that point to like finally send out his final Pokemon Garchomp and basically finish out Lucario with like first Mega Garchomp. This would be along the lines in which like Cynthia might have strategized and foreseen and strategized and planned to certainly member this might be the precise reason for like in the case of like Milotic alone like Cynthia not switching out her Milotic in her fight of like her Milotic against like Acid Puppet. It's definitely my personal impression. So like definitely my personal impression of like the subsets work with like for this fight like I'm also putting definitely literally in that way I'm also definitely putting like the top spirit itself like I'm also telling like and only telling us like Puppet to like use Puppet like ultimate like meteor assault attack against like Togekiss, but like I'm also putting like that attack I'm also putting perfectly Togekiss to like usually dodge that scenario that I'm also bringing. And at that point, like I'm also putting subjects to be like only the sitting back to be have to be forced to like recharge at that point. And at that point, like subjects won't be able to like attack anything back. So like at that point, like and at that point, I'm just putting for subjects usually with like either any release or like most like the thing it would be like a dazzling gleam like that. And those are things like subjects would be like easily taking out subjects like the scenario in which like I'm putting like how so that's like how I'm putting out this would be like taking subjects like scenario that I was there on the program and this like definitely reimbursement right now is that like even while India right now tells us that like this battle has basically discussed via in Cynthia. And also there is still definitely my book reimbursement that Cynthia still would be like sticking to her decision to like retire from like being like from even like the position of champion of like and also mostly from Pokemon battles as well. And the Cynthia would be totally still sticking to that will be a success with the Christians definitely much of the reason behind it. Like her retirement and when Cynthia would be planning on. retiring from Pokemon battle and basically like focus on like archaeology and that kind of like field area. It's definitely focus fully on like the archaeological research and that area. It's definitely would be what like India would be planning. So like and then it's India was able to that like India would be like India's plan right now would be like to retire from like officially from like Pokemon battling and to retire from like the option of like being like the champion of region precisely after like fighting against like Leon in like the finals after like defeating Ash and fighting against Leon in like the finals where like I'm recovering Cynthia would be like totally like definitely expected to have a revolution that like after Cynthia's battle against Iris like where Cynthia was forced to like basically prevent and stop Iris from being able to like use Iris' like Zemo gimmick while Cynthia had already uh like fought Iris again was fighting against Iris using like the game of Mega Evolution of her costume like I'm recovering that might have totally affected Cynthia affected Cynthia and might have even made Cynthia realize that basically that basically basically people like Iris are going to like eventually totally definitely surpass Cynthia. So like I'm referring like at that point what might have been perspective and like Cynthia might have felt that it's like finally time for Cynthia to like retire from Pokemon battling. It's definitely my top three ambition. So like I'm referring like Cynthia even right now would be thinking around in like a kind of like a pessimistic manner where like Cynthia would be totally totally assuming that basically that like Cynthia would be like not only defeating Ash but like I'm talking about Cynthia still yeah like Cynthia would be hoping to like defeat Ash but like still Cynthia would be totally straight away assuming in like a pessimistic manner that basically Cynthia wants to retire after like losing to like Leon after like having being able to like experience and have a battle against like the undefeated champion Leon. So definitely was very amazing. Solely due to like Leon having like possessing the title of being like the undefeated champion and considering like Cynthia would be like in like a pessimistic manner that really along the lines as of like she's definitely not going to be able to like defeat Leon and so the only thing in Cynthia's mind would be to like basically to make her retirement from Pokemon battling and like as like a champion to be like to create to for to production it make that declaration after like losing to Leon and have it like make it into like such a memorable moment after like losing to Leon really along the lines of the other thing is definitely going to put it in. There would be that like lack of confidence that basically from Cynthia's side that in which like I'm referring to the would be totally thing along the lines of like she will never be able strong enough to never be able to like defeat Leon. It's definitely my big ambition and I'm referring this would be like and my considering questions are like this lack of confidence within like Cynthia about the trying to totally eventually totally get Cynthia and like affect Cynthia's performance, even if Cynthia's battle against Ash against him, like Cynthia would be like totally hopeful and thinking that basically Cynthia would definitely be able to like defeat Ash. Like Cynthia would be having her whole focus on like especially Leon of wanting to like fight off the ultimate battle against Leon and then lose to like Leon and then make that memorable letter retirement declaration would be along the lines Cynthia in front of like the huge crowds. Might be what Cynthia might be planning was getting member players, but like I'm from this mindset, pessimistic kind of like a mindset of like Cynthia lacking confidence and considering so totally affect Cynthia's performance, eventually affect seriously affect Cynthia's performance even in Cynthia's current battle against Ash and costing like Cynthia to eventually end up getting defeated by Ash, like the scenario that ended up in something whereas Ash's mindset would be definitely to keep continuing on and basically like even while Leon holds like the undefeated champion uh, title like still it wouldn't even be facing Ash at all like even though Ash would be nervous to like face up against Leon eventually the Superman still Ash would be like totally fighting out against like Leon with like that absolute intent and absolute desire and absolute intent and absolute goal to like defeat Leon and be like the new champion, now top number one champion that then that way surpass Leon would be along the lines as would be of like the mindset of even right now as like as the fighting up against Cynthia, like as to be thinking of Leon as like basically I have to along the lines of like Ash has to like defeat Cynthia and then Ash will be like also planning on like defeating Leon and replacing Leon as like the number one champion. It's definitely my position. It would be with that like optimistic mindset that I'm also like Ash would be fighting. all of the bad, while and that being like the totally contrary to like how Cynthia right now would be like fighting off against Ash, and that being like one major factor that would be eventually resulting in like the whole Cynthia versus Ash battle in Cynthia downfall in like the current Cynthia versus Ash battle. It's like the scenario that I'm only putting and whether much. Okay, like the Pallina Purian person right now, as for like Cynthia, right now is sending her job job again, like as a surface, like I'm preparing right now to be like a moment of ultimate test. Just definitely memorable, and I'm preparing like as telling him surface to like get rid of like all the stealth box. Amber thing would be might have definitely been like a foreshadowing of this moment where like Amber bring the ultimate twist to happen, which like since like Amber bring as like the fifth as Cynthia battle even began. From that point on, like Cynthia alone was like always using her switching strategy and kept on switching up Pokemon mostly during like each and every single battle. Like Cynthia often like that to that extent, like switching up her Pokemon, while as Chad on the other hand, like sticking to his Pokemon and fighting with this Pokemon until like the very end, until like pain. Like I'm considering like this Ash not at all switching out this Pokemon until like this very last moment. I'm considering like right now I'm considering for like the twist to happen with like Ash with like Cynthia right now sending her sharp jump against like Surface. I'm considering right now Ash to like bringing the twist with like Ash finally switching out one of Ash's Pokemon. And that would be like precisely like Surface right now, and right now Ash sending out his like Lucario. It's like the scenario that I'm observing. And since they are totally being shocked, like the entire crowd being shocked, because like they, I'm observing with like that whole track record of like a fighting style that Ash has maintained in so far in Ash's like fight battle against like Cynthia with like Ash mostly not switching out any of the Pokemon. Like I'm observing like the entire with the crowd as well as Cynthia are only expecting Ash to like keep fighting with his like Surface even against Artem. But like I'm going to bring the play that to be like the point where like I'm about to bring like this to happen where like Ash right now itself I'm about to bring to with like Gartham showing up like I'm about to bring Ash straight away sending out like Lucario, like the scenario that I'm about to bring. So like right now I'm about to bring like both maybe like I'm about to bring right now both Cynthia as well as like Cynthia's Garchomp as well as like Ash and Lucario. Both of them, both Cynthia and Ash deciding not to mega evolve their Pokemon. So like I'm about to bring right now like a normal form like Garchomp versus Lucario battle. It's like the scenario that I'm going to bring and I'm going to bring like that fight to progress and I'm going to bring in between I'm going to bring like Cynthia totally switching out her target. It's like the scenario that I'm going to calling back her Garchomp and switching out her target. Like the scenario that I'm going to bring. And at that point as well, I'm going to bring like Ash keeping up his strategy as well and Ash switching out his like Lucario and sending out his like submit is like the scenario that I'm building. So like at that point, I'm also bring for the whole would be when I'm going to bring like the whole subject was complex battles will be happening, and I'm going to bring in that battle definitely like the subjects being defeated by Storicus. But like I'm going to bring maybe like and still I'm going to bring like subjects not being able to like to cause like or like inflict much of a damage at all to Storicus is like also like the scenario that I'm going to bring. So that way, subject being defeated and then sending out his like Lucario and then Lucario struggling his way into like eventually finally offering and defeating. So it's even while Lucario would be staying in like normal form, again like I'm about to bring Ash would be having that for personal thing where like Ash would want to like bring out his like mega Lucario turn this like Lucario into like mega evolution only in its like fight against like Garchomp. Again only against like the mega Garchomp like Ash would want to like bring out his like gimmick and basically turn Lucario into like mega Lucario. It's definitely my favorite because like Ash would be definitely bring Ash totally maybe thinking along that like competitive in a, or like in the rivalry kind of like manner in which like I should want that ultimate like mega Garchomp versus Mega Lucario fight. So like until that point, the Amber Bring Ash totally deciding to not only Ash but Cynthia as well deciding to like not Mega evolve neither their Garchomp or Lucario. So like the scenario that Amber So like Amber Bring at that point like with like Toricus like defeating Surface and then like Ash sending out like Lucario. Ash not deciding not to Mega evolve with like Lucario. Lucario still struck that so totally due to that I'm also bring Lucario having to like struggle his way into like defeat like the so the kids and by then like Lucario totally being exhausted and then like I'm also bring Cynthia sending out Garchomp straight away mega evolving it and like while Garchomp would be in it like absolute full strength and help like Amber to bring Lucario on the other side would be like extreme like of the Ash at that point like straight away Mega evolving like Lucario. And then Amber to bring like an exhausted Mega evolving Lucario was like a full health and full energized like Mega Gaston fight to like happen in which like Amber to bring using that very same Amber to bring like GMAX or a sphere actually defeating like the Mega Capsule. It's like driven to scenario that I was sitting on your members from Rainbridge. So like the members from Rainbridge right now with like acts deciding not to like switch out with like Surfish even against like the after members bring definitely for like Cynthia keeping up with like her very same strategy. So like I'm considering definitely for Garchomp could not defeat like Surfish. I'm considering like Garchomp only doing like just enough damage when I'm considering like against like Surface when considering that Cynthia would be totally switching Garchomp and sending out Toxic and Progress like the moment like Toxic would be entering into like the battlefield without much delay and considering Toxic like taking out Surface and then sending out Lucario defeating Toxic and basically the final showdown between like Garchomp versus Lucario and only at that point like both of them like Mega evolving only at that point like the scenario that I'm sitting on to wait for the first on the reaction. So like definitely my dream prediction right now is definitely for like Garchomps like Dragon Clone to definitely or for like the Fury Cutter of like Surface and also because of like Fury Cutter only being able to like gain in strength only when done consecutively. It's like what I think what I think. So like I'm also only due to like their being that absolute break even though like as hadn't like switched out the Surface until now like still the fact that like there was that break in like the suppressed attack of like Fury Cutter and delivering that consecutive power increasing effect of like the Fury Cutter and delivering not happening. So like and delivering because of this reason like the current Fury Cutter that Surface is right now using against like the Dragon Claw of Captain member to bring totally being overpowered by like the power of like the Dragon Claw attack of Captain with like the scenario that I'm delivering and like maybe the impression as for like the scale shot attack of like Garchomp like while it has like the power to increase speed while simultaneously decreasing defense like and so still it's totally being advantageous for Garchomp and totally working out for Garchomp with like the scenario that I'm delivering right now specifically because of like that Garchomp already being like a speedy Pokemon with that extra increase in speed using like the scale shot and delivering like Garchomp right now being like unreachable for like Surface, like the scenario that I'm referring, I'm Surface not being able to like land any attack at all from this point on against like Garchomp, so solely due to that scale shot increase in like Garchomp speed of definitely number three. So like I'm Garchomp usually is being able to like dodge each and every single attack of Surface at the same time like due to the increase in speed like Garchomp will be able to like safely land each and every single attack of Garchomp on Surface like the scenario that I'm referring to and my person impression right now. Listenable impression that like so like even though like at that point those different to be like extreme advantages of like a situation was Garchomp with that extra added increase in like using like the scale sword that Garchomp and considering that such a situation being formed where like Garchomp would be able to like land each and every single one of its attack on Surface when Surface won't be able to like land won't be able to like land any of its attack on Garchomp. So like even though that situation would be extremely advantageous for Garchomp and Garchomp at that point would be able to like easily defeat like Surface and Perseverance still for some reason I'm Persevering like still I'm Persevering like Cynthia totally not some reason I'm Persevering maybe Cynthia making the mistake of like once again like sticking to like the strategy that Cynthia has had been using throughout her entire battle against as of like the whole switching up strategy that I'm Persevering maybe Cynthia at that point not being able to like see properly assess the situation and realize how like the situation being extremely advantageous for Garchomp that for Garchomp to be able to like easily defeat Surface that and bring still Cynthia not being able to like properly assess that and then Cynthia making the mistake of like switching out Garchomp and basically sending out focus like the scenario that I'm considering. So like that way like Garchomp losing that like added speed, extra added speed that due to like the scale shot reflective in the scenarios that I'm referring to the encryption. Yes, so like the encryption right now is definitely for like Garchomp like Draco Meteor totally or for the meteor assault attack of like Surface. It's like the scenario that I'm referring and I'm referring like the Draco Meteor attack like creating a lot of like dust clouds in like the stage and so like I'm referring like once like quickly the dust clouds would be clearing up like I'm bring like Surface would be at that point Surface would like charging up like meteor assault attack like would be at that point like basically once like the club players would be like dying on the floor totally and fully defeated and fainted definitely was the range. And then the Supreme took this solely due to like Suffers being like totally exhausted from all the fighting that it has done like basically against Milotic and all that. Again the Supreme Suffers by then would be like even while trying attempting to launch it like meteor ultimate powerful like meteor assault attack would be like totally seriously exhausted from all the fighting that ambassador that being like a major factor in like not being able to like, keep up it like meteor assault and survive like the Draco meteor attack of the command and that way considering Suffers being defeated by Dark like the scenario that I'm basically only working right now and my person to impression. So like definitely my person to impression right now that ability and stuff while being like the champion I think of like the Kansas region and the still the and would be like someone who's like totally lacking extremely lacking in terms of like Pokemon battle experience and when it comes to like did nothing like all sorts of unique kind of like battling styles and all sorts of unique kind of trainers and basically all that when it comes to like all that exposure of like having seen like all kinds of like trainers fighting off or in like batches in all sorts of ways like when it comes to like all that exposure and bring like the entire would be like strongly lacking in that department. It's definitely my favorite and it's why like the entire would be like totally coming to all these conclusions and assumptions that basically right now with like the entire even saying that totally like straight away assuming that that she was like she wished that Cynthia would like use a mega evolution like would mega evolve a platform like basically even that and of the different would be definitely like Dianta's like another aspect due to Dianta's lack of experience and exposure. It's definitely my personal impression and I'm definitely predicting like eventually once Lucario would be defeating Dracovish and once like during like the final showdown fight and about to bring it definitely when Ash will be sending out his like last Pokemon Lucario at that point I'm definitely putting like Ash not using like neither remove gimmick nor mega nor the dynamic gimmick nor the mega evolution gimmick at all. Even at that point, like scenario that I'm also, and even at that point, I'm going to bring Tianta once again to like totally assume that so Ash as well is not using any gimmicks. So like basically along the lines of different like DMs assuming there as well. It's definitely not good for impression. And about different like ones like Lucario would be like with the Ash without evolving mega evolving Lucario would be defeating like Togekiss. And then finally like with Ash and the scenario to be like Ash and as well as like Cynthia being down to her last Pokemon. The moment like Cynthia would be sending out her Garchomp. At that point itself like I'm about to bring both Ash and Cynthia straight away like simultaneously mega evolving their last Pokemon like their as mega straight away mega evolving just like Lucario at that point and Cynthia straight away mega evolving her Garchomp at that point. And at that point I was preparing like and at that point I was preparing like the champion and that to like reacting such a way as it's like it's like the biggest shock and it's like the biggest surprise and that like she fully can't believe it like this I'm preparing that like along the lines of one word. So in the role like at that point for like second third to react. Okay, so like definitely the reaction right now as for like all of the sudden right now out of the play that really thoughts like for running getting like a lot of relevant emphasis and spotlight right now as like Lucario is stepping into like the battlefield like I'm going to bring definitely so like I'm going to bring like this would be totally a top chat and definitely never the rendition as to like how exactly eventually Lucario will be launched it's like a mega Lucario eventually in like that final showdown ultimate final attack which unfortunately thinking about the rendition is like a mega Lucario using like a C max for like a dynamic size of like a mega or a sphere like giant or a sphere so like at that point I'm considering maybe like the foreshadowing maybe for like a foreshadowing can happen with like the whole case one cheering up and about to bring the case one to like constantly not case one but like properly to like constantly cheer on Lucario whenever like Lucario will be down in like the battle, especially with like Lucario having like two Pokemon, two opponent Pokemon to like take down like basically like Focus and then like Garchomp. So I like by the time towards like the by the time that like the it would be like the end point of like the final fight between like Mega Lucario was Mega after match. That fight would be about to be over. Like I'm preparing Storm Bunny to like keep cheering so much that I'm preparing like the final end showdown attack of like the Mega Lucario would be like I'm preparing like a giant 3 max level giant size like aura sphere and amber sphere instead of when usually like Lucario throws the giant aura sphere using both of his hands. I think like amber sphere this time the difference to be possibly like a bit like the constant cheering of like Corbin amber sphere maybe like Lucario like throwing like the giant G-Max giant like aura sphere into the air and then those Lucario possibly jumping into like the air and that basically kicking like the giant G-Max size like aura sphere. It would number the maybe being like throw a kick like a football like kick that and also bring like that G-Max level giant aura sphere would be like come straight towards like with all that power and intensity, like that giant aura sphere, like would be like simply with that kick of a final kick of the Tario, straight like move straight towards like with that ultimate skill will be move straight towards like the Mega Gathrum, and at that point like the Mega Gathrum not being able to like dodge that attack and getting caught in like that giant aura sphere, and that way like Mega Gathrum like being defeated by like the Mega Lucario. Maybe I'm considering like that to be like the eventual final scenario right now with like the current situation being like for money out of the blue getting a lot of entertainment weapons. Definitely might have been so like definitely the assumption right now it has for like positive like air slash versus like and Lucario's like bullet punch and I'm like the bullet punch even while it being like a priority move, yet like I'm considering like even through logic I'm considering like Lucario being able to like precisely definitely as for like how the priority of like the bullet punch I'm considering how it will be getting played out in like the current battle situation I'm considering it will be through I'm considering like with like the air slash sonic wind waves of all that like multiple waves like wind waves like sonic waves like approaching Lucario and delivering Lucario being able to like while holding on to its like bullet punch in its like arm and delivering Lucario being able to like dodge every single one of those air slash and delivering Lucario being able to like precisely land that super effective bullet punch on Togekiss is like the scenario that I'm delivering in my cooking and that doing that initial damage to like Togekiss by Lucario's like the scenario that I'm delivering so like definitely the Brian direction right now as for like Togekiss is like air slash versus like Lucario's like four of sphere right now and delivering like most likely hand totally right now using like the axe strategy to like especially make sure to make Lucario dodge like the air slashes like the scenario that I'm looking for. I'm delivering right now as like the air slash attack trap basically comes straight towards like Lucario and delivering not project towards multiple air slashes. I'm delivering like as right now ordering his like Lucario to like basically throw like the aura sphere ball into like the ground and that way like basically that would be totally unexpected for like Cynthia. I'm delivering like through that Ash logic I'm delivering Ash Lucario throwing the aura sphere onto the ground and jumping up into like the air and that way like dodging the air stat and then I'm delivering Ash totally telling his like Lucario to like basically use that point of super Lucario in like the air and right in front of like Togekiss and Togekiss won't be expecting that like so like Togekiss won't be able to like dodge or counter attack at that point. So like I'm delivering at that point I'm probably ordering Lucario to like do some sort of like a fighting type move. It's like the scenario that I'm delivering and that Lucario potentially landing that direct hit on like Togekiss is like the scenario that I'm delivering. Yet like I'm delivering it for since it would be like a unforeseen sort to be like a fighting type move. I'm delivering that move not being able to like do much of a damage to Togekiss at all. It's like the when compared to like the bullet punch, it is like the scenario that I'm delivering right now in the Sicilian version. Like the Philadelphia Sicilian version right now is that basically Lucario might have definitely not at all flinched by like the air slash attack of like Togekiss. It's definitely not the Philadelphia. What might have happened might have been definitely an injury to like precisely one of the Lucario. Like it might have been exactly what might have happened. It might not have. It might not even be flinching, but it might be an actual situation like for Ash and Lucario right now with like Lucario so that slash attack like basically injuring one of like Lucario's like that basically from this point on like I'm considering Lucario not being able to like a run. It's like that I'm considering to be like a situation for like Ash and Lucario. So like I'm considering like Ash and Lucario like Ash without much delay at all like realizing that it's like the scenario that I'm considering. So also right now with like the uh, next set of like air slash attack like coming towards like Lucario and as ordering Lucario to use like bullet for example to bring right now unlike in like the beginning where like Lucario was able to like charge in with like the bullet punch towards like Tauke's Ambassador bring the strength Lucario not being able to like do that. Like Ambassador Lucario just standing in like a stationary position like Lucario without being able to like run and with the bring or like Ambassador Lucario attempting to like run but like the pain from like the that leg of Lucario totally preventing movement for like Lucario and Lucario not being able to like run and Lucario like just standing there and deflecting throwing away like each of like their flash using its like bullet punches like the scenario that I'm going to bring and I'm going to bring maybe for like the pain to the like to cause like Lucario not being able to like accurately like cancel away like all of like their flash using its like bullet punch and that way possibly Lucario like taking in another set of like damage as well from like so the air slash as well. It's definitely also my secondary impression. So I'm considering like even though and that to be the situation for like Ashen's Lucario right now is definitely my secondary impression. So like even though Luca and I'm considering like at that point like Cynthia would be like totally hoping that Ash would like Mega Evolve plus Lucario but like I'm considering like maybe I'm considering even go as well totally shouting out to Ash to like maybe Mega working like Lucario. But like I'm considering Ash would be totally having in his mind would be totally having that thing going where like Ash would totally might have already decided like the moment Ash has even stepped into his like that like again Cynthia itself like at that point like not only Ash but like Cynthia will might have like decided to only bring out like the mega evolved forms of like the Lucario as well as like Capstone only in that the final showdown fight. It's also like possibly my the reaction. So like I'm just putting the searching the focus reason like even while I'm just bringing the current situation most likely being like Lucario with this like one of its like injured and being totally unable to like run and just bring that still as deciding not to like mega evolve it's like Lucario. At that point, I'm considering maybe with like Storm Bunny like getting that emphasis and importance in like Lucario's bad like I'm considering maybe like Lucario totally and Matt Lucario and that maybe figuring out the solutions at that point with like Lucario not being able to run like and maybe the temporary the solution that like Ash and Lucario might some figure out would be most likely to basically like create like an aura sphere with like Lucario's power, like to create like an aura sphere and then for Lucario to like totally jump and basically kick the aura sphere straight towards like Togekiss. And maybe that might be like that kick will be like extremely powerful from Lucario. And then considering that Togekiss not being able to like dodge like the speed of like the aura sphere that would be from Lucario's kick would be like charging straight towards like Togekiss and that way like that aura sphere landing at Togekiss and that way, like Lucario taking out and defeating Cloud gets is like a possible scenario that I'm going to looking right now. And my personal impression. So like I'm considering maybe that way like Ash and Lucario still while sticking to their decision to like not mega evolve of their Lucario unless like the opponent is like Garchomp, which would be like my personal impression as for like the situation. So like I'm considering like while sticking to their whole decision like still through a remote attack like still Ash and Lucario like totally pulling through and defeating Tokyo to like in the scenario that I'm considering. And I'm considering once like specifically Dark Jones will be like showing up to like the battlefield. And straight away, Ash as well as Cynthia would be at that point mega evolving Gotham and Lucario. At that point, I'm also bringing Lucario when the moment it would be like mega evolve. Like at that point, it feels like I'm also bringing Lucario being able to like once again being able to because like I'm also bringing like when mega evolve, like Lucario would be gaining all that temporary power in its like mega evolve forms that basically onto its like entire body, including its feet. That at that point, like I'm also bringing like Lucario being able to like run as usually as it does like with that extreme speed and all that. It's definitely the scenario that I'm looking for and my top three impression. Yeah, so like in a Cindy top three impression right now, as for like Cynthia right now, that basically using her Dynamax gimmick and that to control like is for Pokemon like when like she still have her Garchomp left, then as Cynthia still having her Garchomp, her eight Pokemon still remaining like still Cynthia not deciding to take the absolute advantage of that and basically like a mega World Cup Gotham. Instead of that, like basically Cynthia deciding like to like Dynamax Topic example, but that would be solely due to like Cynthia or confidence certainly my personal theory and system because like I'm also saying like Cynthia would be totally right now object the mindset as if like it's like totally game over for at especially because of like Cynthia would be definitely having that extreme or confidence in her case Pokemon Garchomp So on top of like 30 Pokemon Garchomp remaining like orderly uh since like according to Cynthia, they would be only feeling along the lines as if like currently orderly even when Tom is in its like normal form like Lucario is like seriously struggling against like the normal form of like Rocket itself. Would be along the lines of India, and it's like air flash would be along the lines India would be thinking right now. It's definitely not going to be, and hence like that might have resulted in that extreme of kind of confidence in India. That India might have totally decided to like totally switch things up and basically to do things differently and basically to give that surprise. So they might have totally prioritize like the whole surprise element or due to like India's confidence definitely might have they might have prioritized like the surprise and shock element and basically to give everyone including at a shock by doing the unexpected and basically totally like dynamaxing up the case and I'm also putting like this like look since like this they would be totally feeling as if like uh, what's the mindset as if like Lucario is struggling is struggling against like the normal face topic example putting like Cynthia would be like absolutely extremely overconfident right now possibly and thinking that with like a dynamic topic like basically Lucario won't be even standing a chance at all. It's definitely never bring it to the example putting like Cynthia might have totally not like missed out like the part where like in like the whole news about like the rookie trainer where it was said about like the rookie where like the balance of like the rookie trainer as had basically been shown like about the trainer they might have not seen that definitely remember the reaction that program on TV where like and they might have definitely missed out not seen like Ash's like battle in this like for championship against like right hand where like as if Lucario had used like the G max level giant or up yeah, definitely my opinion. So like the fact that Lucario can use like a G max level like giant or up attack would be one thing that Cynthia might be even to the present moment would be like totally unaware of. So definitely my opinion. And hence that would be like a main factor in like Cynthia's lack for confidence as well right now is definitely my Bundre so like right now my Bundre is that like since like top kids have dynamics and turn cues like I'm bring like so with like top kids like I'm definitely bring like the whole Gmax giant Gmax version of like our of attack that right now they're preparing for like definitely and right now with like as even mega evolving with like Lucario starting to like 20 mega evolve with Lucario definitely I'm also preparing like mega evolved Lucario like sending out like ultimate Gina size giant aura sphere and sending that aura sphere straight towards like Tokyo and that's still leading to like the possibility that like basically to be precisely through like the score bunny inspired like kick to like the giant aura sphere that would be like sending it shooting it straight towards like Tokyo and like that giant aura sphere and those thing would be exactly how I'm going to depending for Ash and just like just like Mega Lucario would be taking out and defeating the Dynamax dog with like the scenario that I'm different. So like I'm definitely looking for like topic is like Dynamax period not being toxic not being able to survive until it's like Dynamax period would be over. It's definitely one of those things. Even before that I'm different like Ash's Mega Lucario would be taking out like the Dynamax toxic using its like giant or like the scenario that I'm doing and that attack while Ashley Lucario would be like launching that attack, like I'm preferring it to totally come as like that absolute surprise and shock for like for Cynthia at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm preferring or different I'm preferring. So after like Tokyo would be defeated, I'm preferring like as for like the whole Garchomp and I'm preferring like straight away like at the moment they would be sending out her Garchomp, her Mega Whirling her Garchomp and like as for like the Garchomp versus like Lucario fight like right now my preferring I'm preferring that like as for like how exactly Lucario would be defeating Garchomp and definitely it would be definitely right now I'm preferring like the Mega Garchomp would be defeating and Mega Lucario would be defeating like the Mega Garchomp precisely not like a giant aura sphere VMAX level giant aura sphere this would not be like scenario in this like Mega Lucario would be defeating Mega Garchomp this like my personal theory and prediction right now since like I'm preferring right now this like so it gives like dynamic example to bring that whole ultimate moment of like Mega Lucario of like giant uh T-Max level giant aura sphere like that attack would be precisely it would be precisely the dynamics focus that would be like taking the intensity of that attack and getting defeated by that attack. Like that my personal impression right now. So like I'm different as for like the Gapton versus the Cario fight, like I'm different definitely. Like a Gapton versus Mega the Cario fight, like I'm different. To be through like my personal impression right now as for like how exactly Mega Lucario might defeat like finally defeating like a Mega Gapton members different like the throw most likely about different like towards like the very end like I'm different like Mega Lucario as well as Mega Gapton being extreme like but like I'm different so at that very last moment that I'm different like Mega Lucario totally learning some sort of like a new move, brand new move at that point, at that very final situation, like final showdown situation. I'm going to bring like Mega Lucario, learn some sort of like an ultimate powerful new move, and I'm going to bring it to be with that move that I'm going to bring like Mega Lucario will be like offering and defeating and taking out like the Mega Zapdos Cynthia. It's like the eventual showdown final scenario that I'm going to bring, and that would be how I'm going to bring actually right now I'm going to bring how at will be defeating Cynthia and sub Mega Zapdos. Like definitely my Reambus.